I'm only here in Brazil for about a week, and I'm not going to drink. These guys drink the water straight out of the streams. I don't want to risk that, personally, because I've got to fly home. It takes me about 24 hours to get home from here, and the last thing I want is to pick up something from the water and have lower intestinal problems on the flight. So I'm filtering all my water, which means I don't get to drink as much or as quickly as these other two guys. But here we're up on the side of a ridge where the water in rainy season will come down in various places here. It has all kinds of different spots. It's all flowing down into a gully over here, which is our little stream. But in this area of sand, when you find an area that's loaded with sand like this is a place where in the rain the water will pool up. Now say you're looking for water and you get to a place like this which is all sandy, and you're thinking, okay, I'm desperate, I might have to dig for water. Digging for water creates a lot of sweat. You're gonna lose a lot of water. So if you don't find it, you're barking up the wrong tree if you don't test this ground for water. So one of the things which I would do normally if I'm following a water course downhill, I don't want to have to hike all the way down in the valley where I know I'm going to find water. I want to find it before I get there. So I have to find where the water table is. And sometimes the sand like this might have had water in it maybe even a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So one of the things I do is I'll take my machete and plunge it in. And if I bring the machete up and the end of it's wet, you get wet sand on the end, then you know I've got a water table right below here. This time it's coming up bone dry. See, I'm not hitting rock. I can feel I'm still in sand as the thing is sinking lower. Now it's still coming up dry. Now there, in 2 minutes, not even a minute and a half, 30 seconds, I determined this is not a place that's worth digging. Someone's gonna say, well, that dulls your machete. Yeah, if you do it all day long, every day, it'll probably dull your machete, but I carry sharpening gear anyway. I know right now that it does not pay for me to dig. Now if I did have to dig in this thing, I'm not going to dig a giant pit. I'm going to dig a cat hole. I'm going to dig down, straight down, just a hole as narrow as I can dig it, so I'm not digging out a large volume of sand. Then you might think, well, how am I going to get the water back out of there? Okay, if I dig a little narrow hole and I get to the bottom like at the beach, you know, you're digging down into the beach and you get to the bottom and the water starts to you find the water table, it fills up with water in the bottom. You might have a cup and a half, 2 cups of water down there, but you have no way to get it out. And that's one of the things which I like about the Sawyer Mini, is that it comes with a syringe. Now the syringe is used for backwashing the filter. When the filter gets stiff, you use this syringe to backflow it and to push all the debris out of the filter again. But what I do with my Sawyer, and this is a technique I developed years ago for use up in the mountains, is I carry a meter-long tube, plastic tube, which fits on the end of that Sawyer Mini 60 milliliter syringe. Now these syringes are nothing special. They've got the Sawyer label on them, but you can find these in just about anywhere. Any medical supply place will have them in the tubing that fits. And on the bottom of it, what I've attached here is a bubbler from a fish tank. And that bubbler acts as a pre-filter. It keeps all kinds of garbage from coming up the tube. So now say I've got a cat hole here and I've got about a cup and a half, 2 cups of water down there. All I have to do is use the 2 rubber bands I have attached to the filter there to put this onto a stick. Any kind of stick, a long weed, anything long and straight, and I can lower that in and then suck the water back out. And I didn't have to dig a big pit to get to the water to be able to scoop it out. I've used the backwash syringe off my filter in a tube which I had the forethought to include, and therefore, you know, I can just suck water 60 milliliters up at a time and put it in the squeeze bottle and get water. This is one I used up in the mountains. Here in the mountains of Minas Gerais, there's bromeliads, which are like a pitcher-like plant up there, and the fog at night will condense in them, and every one of them will have between 50 and 200 milliliters of water, but they've also got sediment in the very bottom. So what I would do is use a 60 milliliter syringe and a short piece of tubing with the bubbler on the end, drop it in the plant and suck the water out. And I've actually had to use that in a survival situation. We went up to the top of a mountain one time where I knew there was a spring. There's a spring there every time I'd ever been there. There was plenty of water at that one spring. I got there and it was bone dry. So I set I had a student with me, just the 2 of us. I sent him with the syringe and the tube, sucking water out of the bromeliads, and he got about 2 liters of water. In the time I was looking for a seep or some other area where water was draining out of the mountain somewhere, I didn't find anything, and that was the only water we had for that day. And then that night it rained furiously, and all the springs filled back up, so we were fine. But that little tube, you've already got the filter, you've already got the syringe, you've already got all the things that your filter came with. If you just spend $1.50 and get one of these tubes, there's all kinds of places you can get water if you have the tube, and you can reach down and suck water out. I'm going to do another test. This is another sandy spot where the sand seems kind of damp. So let's still not hitting rock. Now, this is moist sand, but it's not wet. I don't think I'm going to get water pooling up down there. Sometimes if you leave the machete in for a minute or two, water might fill in. And when you pull it out, you can test. No, the sand is still too dry to bother digging this out. Just another alternate use of the machete. In this water course here, there's plenty of water flowing in the stream because of the recent rains. But if you look here, the ground is covered with round pebbles, which means during the height of the rainy season, this area here is actually underwater. You can see the grass has all been blown over. It's all laid over, flowing downhill. So this is a flash flood area. If we were to get a rain up in the top of this basin, it would all come flooding through here. Now in the dry season, that grass will still be laid over, the round pebbles will still be there, and you can tell where water's been flowing by reading, the signs of where it's been before. And those are the places you want to dig or look for seeps or things like that. When you're searching for water in dry season and you're in one of these basins, when you do find water that's exposed to the surface, it often looks a lot like this. A little tiny pool like that can save your life. If you're lucky enough to find this where the water is still exposed on the surface. Now, how do you get that out? With your Sawyer Mini, in the tube I talked about, you can drop the tube in there and the little fish bubbler will keep the sediment from running up the tube. Now, with the fish bubbler attached there, with the tube just spiraled around the stick and attached at the end here with another rubber band, not so tight that it pinches it off, but I have a little tail there I can work with. I can drop this end into the water and start retrieving water out of any kind of crack or crevice. See, this little pool here is nice and exposed, and I can just lay the filter in there, set this up, and start sucking water up. Now I fill the tube, and you can see I've got a good shot of water in there. Do another, and this time I'll get a full syringe. Now if you don't want the water to run back down, you just pinch off the top of the tube. Now I can start collecting water in the bag. Set that aside and just continue the process. It's kind of a three-handed operation right now. Now sometimes in rocky areas you'll find a place where the water course is carved down so deep and it's all filled with boulders, and you can hear water down below running, and you know it's down there, but there's just no way to get to it. With the probe, using the fish bubbler and the tube, you can shoot this thing down through the rocks, get it underwater. All you got to do is get that little bubbler under the water, and you can start filling your syringe. And your water container. I've seen a lot of people that'll carry a small tube in their survival kit so they can suck water out. But what are you going to do? You're sucking that water into your mouth. It's untreated water. You don't want to do that. In a system like this with the Sawyer Mini that comes with this wonderful syringe, please just add this to the kit. It weighs, you know, costs $1.50 if that, and it can really get you out of a jam. Now that fish bubbler on the end is not a biological filter. It keeps all the sediment and horrible stuff you don't want to drink from coming in your mouth. And even if you're going to just put a tube in your kit and you think you're going to drink that water straight from whatever raw source you're using, the fish bubbler is a good pre-filter. Okay, I think a little bit more and we're there. Okay, that's 16 ounces of water, which I pulled out of this source. Now I know it's kind of crazy right now that I'm doing it out of this little tiny pool. That's just to demonstrate the technique, because in dry season, that's the kind of water you're going to find out here. Or in other desert locations, you might find a little seep where the water is just a sheen of water running down a rock and maybe even disappearing and evaporating in the sun. In other areas, I've taken a t-shirt and just lay it on there and come back in 5-10 minutes and the t-shirt will be wet enough you can wring out into a cup and then start filtering your water that way if you need to filter that water. Usually when water is exposed to the sun like that, it's pretty safe. If it's just draining out of a rock and exposed to the sun, it doesn't have a lot of time to accumulate all kinds of things. These little tiny water sources can save your life in the bush if you're equipped to get to them, especially with the thing with the cracks in the rocks. I know in Pennsylvania all the time you'll get to rock fields in the Appalachians. Now why is there a rock field in the Appalachians? It's because the water table's underneath those rocks and nothing's growing there. Sometimes you can hear the water flowing below those rocks, you just can't get down to it. And sometimes if you search around, you can find a place where you can see the water there, but you have no way to get to it. Well, this is your answer for that. If you have a probe like this with just a meter-long piece of tubing and a fish bubbler, you can reach down into those areas, you can suck that water back up, and it can save you a lot of hiking. Now, usually in an area that has water like that, if you keep going downhill, you're going to find where it's exposed to the surface. But what if you're going the other way? What if you're going back over the top of this ridge and have to get over it and stock up on water? You can't always afford to hike downhill and find fresh water. Sometimes it's just not convenient or just not in the plan. Or if you're equipped properly for the kind of desert area that you're in, there's ways to get to water which you probably never thought of. And this is definitely one of them. I don't know if other people do this. I've never seen it myself. I've done it for years, and the system definitely works. Now to clean that out, I want to get rid of the water that's in there because I don't want that all in my pocket. So I'm just going to suck it all up through. And then blow it. You can even backwash the fish bubbler by blowing the water back down through it. Probably how I should have done it. You can see I've still got water coming out of my bubbler. Buy a new bubbler. Don't use one that was used in a fish tank. They don't cost that much. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the Sawyer Mini Filter in general. The system itself costs about $25. You can find them, you know, around that price range. Most stores, it's fairly easy to find. I think it's a good system. I like the fact that they treat a large volume of water. You can just keep using it for a long time. There's no, you know, the service life of these is really quite incredible. Now on this trip, we are in desert country in the rainy season, but it stopped raining, so we got a draining landscape here. And on the hike in, the two guys I'm with, Giuliano and his brother, are drinking untreated water. They're just drinking it right out of the streams and things, and they can get away with that because they live here. I have to get on a plane this week and fly back to the US, and I don't want to have some waterborne illness, so every drop of water I've drank so far on this trip has come through the Sawyer Mini Filter. Problems with it. When you first get the filter, the flow is really good. I mean, if you put clear water through it, you're getting a good filter flow, and you can just squeeze the bag and drink as you're supposed to, or you can squeeze it and fill a container. The lower quality of water you get, the thing starts to plug up, and then you have to backwash it and clear that out, which restores the flow relatively quickly. 2 or 3 shots with the syringe and the you know, backwashing the filter, you know, be that way against the flow, pushes all that sediment out and whatever has been accumulating in there, and you get your flow back and you can start drinking. On the way in, I hadn't backwashed it before I left, and the flow was kind of stiff. So I got to camp, I was a little bit dehydrated. Some of that was just negligence, just pushing on and pushing through this really rough hike we did yesterday. I like the system. It's cheap, it's inexpensive. You know, you can find them anywhere. I'd say they're an excellent backup system. They're very compact, they're very inexpensive. It doesn't cost you much to have one in your pack, and they can get you out of a jam. The flow is fairly good. Right now it's backwashed. Gotta remember to tip it up. I like it as a system. I would not hesitate to carry one of these again. I'll keep it in my pack, and that's a testament right there. Personally, I prefer chemical means to treat water in the bush, because you, especially in an area like this where you're drinking a lot of water every day, it's very hard to keep up with your hydration. And with chemical means, you can just fill up with water, drop the chemicals in there, a half hour later you have several liters of water. Whereas with this system, I would have to squeeze this through the bag and fill all my canteens, and that takes a long time, especially because halfway through that process you'll probably have to backwash the filter. As a standalone filter like I'm using on this trip, I don't think I'll do this again. I think I'll definitely look for chemical means. I'm not carrying chemical means specifically to give this thing a test, give it a workout, and depend on it and see if it works. My conclusion is that it does. It is a lot of work to drink water through this filter at the volume that I have to consume on this trip. I've probably run 8 bags through the filter just drinking it since I've been out here, and that's not really enough. I got to the point where I was dehydrated. Yesterday when I got to camp I was dehydrated. I was still dehydrated this morning, even after drinking last night, and just now I've gotten caught up on my hydration, where things are running free and clear, if you know what I mean. So yeah, the Sawyer Mini Filter gets the Colhane stamp of approval. I like it, but I still prefer chemical means to treat my water. Personal preference there. If you're going to use this filter, especially for a group of people, I recommend that each person have their own. I would not be able to filter enough water for more than 2 people. That's the maximum you're going to be able to hydrate with this system. It just doesn't produce enough quick enough to work as a filter for a group of people. So if everybody in your group has a filter system or something, wants to put something in their pack, it's a good one. For day hikers or things like that, it'll help you if you run out of water that you're not planning on using water from nature. You'll be able to fill up canteens and things like that. Now on an extended trip, this thing would probably get kind of old after a while, using this day after day to try and hydrate. Yeah, like I said, chemical means is a much quicker way to hydrate, or spend the money on a larger filter, one with a pump that you can produce a higher volume of water. for my purposes this weekend as a single, I'm the only person depending on this right now, and it's been working for me. So there you have it. That's my my thoughts on it. Now the one thing I really did like is that it came with this awesome 60 milliliter syringe, and if you set it up with a bubbler and a meter long tube, you can get to water which normally would be inaccessible or difficult to use to fill a container. That's a great system for any time you're in the desert or a place where you have a draining landscape. That when that water falls out of accessibility, this will get back to it and allow you to get water in places you didn't think possible. I've pulled water out of plants with these. I've pulled water out of crevices and cracks. I have even threaded, here in the tropics, there's something interesting happens. The boulders never freeze. So when there's cracks in the boulders, rainwater will go down in there, and because it has a very limited surface area, the evaporation is very slow. And sometimes you can thread this tube without the bubbler on it, thread that down into cracks in the rocks and suck water out of them. In northern climates or extreme southern climates, where the rocks, where it freezes at night, what happens is those natural wells will swell and crack the rock, and they end up draining. So it's not something you're going to find in North America. A lot of places like that where big boulders have trapped water. Here you can see little insects and crickets going in and out. They're going down there to drink water. So if you thread the tube in there, you can suck up water. I've gotten at least a liter of water out of one boulder just with this tube. But if you don't have a 60 milliliter syringe and you don't have the tube, you have no way to do that. And at least the Sawyer Mini comes with this half the system. The other half you definitely should add to your kit is a bubbler and a tube. I usually use two of them. I have a long one and a short one. And the short one is used for sources like plants and things like that, where you can just pop it in there and pull the water out of them. Yeah, that's it. If you're thinking ahead and you're going to carry a system like this, or if you just want to add a 60 milliliter syringe and a meter long tube and a fish bubbler to your system, you'll be able to get water out of places that were normally inaccessible. So that's my tip for the day from Central Brazil. And yeah, the Sawyer Mini, it's a go. Add a tube, then you're good to go.